All right, we're live, I think. This is why people do starting soon screens, because YouTube especially makes it really hard to know. All right, hey, I'm Lofi Cody. Welcome to my basement. If this is your first time ever being in one of my streams or seeing one of my videos, I am a music producer from the west coast of Canada. I mostly make lo-fi video game music, down-tempo, stuff like that, but I also do a lot of mixing and mastering for a few different genres, really just all electronic music I love. Today, I wanted to do a stream. I want to do something a little different. So far, I've been doing a lot of production streams, and I'm going to keep doing production, or we're going to probably get around to doing some mixing and mastering today. But I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of approach to lo-fi music. So just stuff I've been thinking about, stuff that I thought was really interesting, because today the track that if we get to it that we're going to master is one of the final tracks on an album from an upcoming lo-fi artist that's signed to my label, that's signed to Humble Beats, called Pocket Tots, and he's a brand new artist. I just uploaded a single for him coming out September 27th, so if you're watching this after that date, check for a link. I'll share a link so we can all go support this brand new artist. But we really wanted to come out of the gate with an album, and albums are a little bit less common these days. I don't know if you've noticed that most musicians are really, especially pop musicians and like easy listening stuff, it's all about singles, single week. You don't get albums quite as much as when I was young. I'm 31 for context, but when I was a kid, it was all about albums and waiting for new albums, and that doesn't seem to be quite a thing anymore. But I've been thinking about the value of releasing an album, specifically because with streaming, I have a really love-hate relationship with Spotify, because Spotify, for one, it pays artists so poorly, and they're always looking for new ways to try to pay artists less and rip off artists. But at the same time, as a fairly easy listening artist, is someone who makes instrumental music, I probably wouldn't have a career without Spotify. I don't know how people would have found my music. Like, I would have been posting on MySpace. For those of you as old as me might remember that. Like, it was a lot harder to get discovered before streaming. But then once you're discovered, like, I recently passed 82,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. And when I started making music, if you told me I'd have 82,000 people listen to my music, blown my mind. I would have imagined I was like a celebrity, but it's really not that much. It's not a lot of money. I still need to make money from other sources, other work, doing odd jobs, stuff like that. So I have this love-hate relationship with Spotify, but I've been thinking too, because one of the big pieces of advice is to release singles. And the reason for that is to feed the algorithm. You want to be on release radar every week. You want to constantly have something new being pushed out onto day lists and new release lists and all these things. You want to be in the algorithm so that you're automatically being played for people. And that is, knocked over an unopened can. That was lucky. And yeah, that's a good way to grow, and that's the way to make money, basically. But what I worry about is if, Spotify dies, or if the algorithm changes, or some new platform comes up, or, I don't know, there's the global internet outage or something. I worry with this approach, are people going to remember who you are? Or who I am, who we are? Are they going to realize, oh, I haven't heard a Lo-Fi Cody track in a while? Like, because if I'm releasing a single every week, are people excited for my release, or is it just another Friday? So my thought is, how do I make something that is significant, that is memorable, that people can get excited about, so it's not just like more noise. It's not just another randomly selected song. And I've been working specifically in putting out more and more albums and trying to get out trying to make big thematic albums and things that people save and that people love, and I've been getting really good response, and I've seen the percentages in Spotify change from programmed listeners towards active listeners, people who actually look up my music and listen to it, and that's a really good thing. And I kind of feel like that is going to be the future. Like realistically, like streaming is always going to be here, but if you want to be remembered, and here I was just looking up some stats as why I'm kind of trailing off. What really made me think of this is there's a guy who you may have heard of, is a little bit old timey, called Fatboy Slim. Here, let me switch to my computer screen. So Fatboy Slim has almost 5 million monthly listeners, and the majority, like this song that featured some pop singers, so that's fairly new, but the majority of his songs here were all released, his top performing songs. Guy has 5 million monthly listeners, top songs getting millions of plays, released in 1998. So what makes something like this keep getting millions of plays? Like, what is that, 26 years after its release? And that's something where I think albums have value still, even if a lot of artists are like single, feed the algorithm. And that's where I'm really excited about, to come full circle, I'm really excited about making this album for Pocket Tots, to give him something that he can promote, that we can promote, that people can be excited about and can save. And potentially someday we'll see about getting it on CD if people want to buy that. I've seen CDs are coming back. And that's just something I've been thinking about a lot. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone, but it's stuff I think about. But anyways, I wanted to show you this song. Here, I'm going to stop my Spotify. So this is, like I said, a Pocket Tots track. It's one of the final ones for his album, but this is also a collab. It's going to be Pocket Tots and Lofi Cody collab, which is a little bit fun for me because it means that I actually get to do some sound design and some composing. It's not just mixing and mastering. It's a little bit more me, a little bit more of my influence. So let me see. Is this the right track? I might have the wrong track open. I do have the wrong track open. That's silly. I'm supposed to plan for these things. Here we go. That was an original track I'm working on, which we can look at later. Here we go. Here's the Pocket Dots track. So I've got a lot of MIDI and a lot of stems, so you can see what stuff I've made because it's still in MIDI form. But I want to show you some cool stuff that I've been doing here. So here's the track. Again, we're leaning into this sort of some 80s vibes, and then also a very like movie soundtrack kind of feeling, like something that would underscore a moment. And do a little bit of mixing on the spot while we listen. Be able to hear that guitar a little bit better. This pad sound here, this guy. And then, oh, where's the sparkles? Where are they coming from? This guy. Those are very Nate, the guy who I'm working with, that's very much like his signature kind of vibe, is these really cool like rhythmic pads and synths, very atmospheric. Yeah, so that's the track. It's fairly well mixed already. I haven't done any mastering yet, so we can work on some mastering. But I want to show one thing that I'd cut out of it right now is I felt like that needed a little bit more percussion. And already, so I did a pass and I sent it to Pocket Tots. Pocket Tots did a pass. And I've discovered something really cool. So this channel here, right now it's just audio, but I'm actually going to show you how I make it. Because Ableton always is just like blowing my mind with new stuff. So if you grab an Ableton sampler, oh, please don't crash, sampler here, and we grab a percussion loop. I don't know if I will be able to find the exact one that I used again, but let me see. We'll grab one that I know sounds cool at least. There you go. Drag that in there. So one neat thing that's really neat with Ableton, I'm just going to EQ this down, filter it. Oops. Does that work? Nope. With the sampler, I figured out that you could put an arpeggiator before it, which is just a little MIDI device. And then if I just hold down a note, it just sort of stutters, and I can turn up speed if I want. But where this gets really interesting is it starts, it's just going to start at the beginning of the sample. But if I go over to the modulation here, the LFO2, so about LFO1 doesn't have the send options for some reason, but LFO2, I can turn it on, and I can send it to sample, oh, where is it? Sample offset. And then it's going to change where that start is based on the speed of the LFO. Oh, if I turn it up. Which right now is just making it stutter in one spot. But what you can do to be a little bit more creative is, I keep accidentally opening my filter. There we go. Is you can use this random shape on the LFO. Also gonna sync it to the same tempo. Oop. There you go. Nope. And now every hit, it's jumping to a different place in that sample. And it's truly random. So no like few bar window is going to be exactly the same. And I just thought this was a really cool way, because I often spend so much time like zoomed in and cutting up pieces of these samples and stuff. And sometimes when I just want like something very background, it's a lot faster to do that. So I did something like that. I recorded a very small loop, I flattened it, and then I came up with this one here. You throw it in with the drums. So I don't know about you guys, but I think that's awesome. And if we in the context of the song, it really just fills out. It just adds a little bit more movement, a little bit more sound, some sort of ear candy. While we listen, I'm gonna start doing a little bit of mastering. I'm actually gonna set the track to loop the full length of the track. So I'm gonna be a little bit quiet, because I'm listening and it's hard to listen and talk at the same time. But I will explain some of what I'm doing here if you've never seen me master before. So always the first thing I'm gonna do is throw a utility on there, and that's just to make bass mono. And oh, I feel like that's a little bit loud now. Is that this one? Yeah, it is. I'm gonna make that a little quieter. And I hear people go back and forth on how much you really want your bass to be mono, because a wide bass, a stereo bass, can sound thicker and fuller. But I also just find that those sub frequencies, if they get into the side channels in stereo, they can also become uneven, and you'll have like sub more so in one ear than the other, and it just starts to make things sound messy and fatiguing to listen to. So always the first thing I do is just make my sub bass mono. Let me think what to do next. I'm gonna throw a tape saturator emulator on right away. So soft tube tape has a few different models. I really like this model B, which is the only one that they don't tell you what it's modeled after. It's supposedly some sort of tube-based saturation, but I find it adds emphasis to lower frequencies with saturation. Oops, there we go. Just adjusting crosstalk is a stereo term. It refers to how much bleed there is between stereo channels. So like if something's just in the right channel, sometimes some of it will kind of end up on the left channel with tape in analog recording. So I can emulate that to effect, and it kind of creates just a cool stereo effect, makes things sound wider. All right, next I'm going to add, I'm going to add an EQ8. I'm actually going to put it before that tape. I'm just going to cut off things below 20 hertz, and it's not like it's a hard cut by Ableton EQ standards, but there is still frequency range down there. But by reducing inaudible frequencies, which the vast majority of headphones and speakers you can't hear below 20 hertz anyways. So by getting those out of the mix, it creates less volume, which like it's quieter, so you can make it louder, audibly louder, because it's physically quieter. It's hard to explain, but the frequencies you can't hear are still there, and they still peak compressors, and they still cause speakers to pop and compression algorithms to freak out and all these things. So especially with streaming, I find it, if you just leave that out, you can get a louder song without it. I have this, I should have mentioned, I have a limiter on there. I wouldn't normally have that on there while I do this. I'm doing that for the sake of stream, so I don't accidentally make it super loud and deafen everybody. Okay, so now after the tape, so I did that EQ. After the tape, I'm gonna add Smart EQ by Sonable. And this is like an AI EQ thing. Here, let me find my reference tracks. I'm gonna use a Mondo Loops track as a reference here. So it'll allow you to analyze a reference, and then it'll EQ. Here, I'm gonna start this loud part of the song. It'll analyze your song, and it'll compare it to a reference, and it'll make EQ changes or suggest EQ changes. You don't have to just take them. So like that was pretty dramatically different, and it made this huge boost here that I really don't care for. So I'm gonna pull down how much it's actually affecting my signal. I'm gonna shorten how much, what frequency ranges it's allowed to affect. I still don't love that. Okay, I'm also going to add some more sub pass, because it always finds a way to get back in. There we go. And that's just at the lowest possible setting there. And often what I'll often do is add a high shelf around 5K, because I find especially with like lo-fi and hip hop, we'll tend to be missing those frequencies, and it's nice to add them back in. It just makes the track sound, ironically, a little bit more hi-fi, but I like that. It sounds more professional in my mind, a little more full. But I'm gonna do that through a separate plugin. I'm gonna do that through a Pultec EQ. They have the stupidest names, so I can never remember which one's which. I think EQP1A. I'll know when I see it. Yes, this one. So what this EQ is famous for is you can boost your lows, which if you're in like headphones or good speakers, you'll be able to hear that. And then you could cut them at the same time. And it just makes a really round sounding kick. So I'll use that sometimes. I don't just throw it on everything. Like, I actually quite like how the kick sounds in this mix, so I don't want to mess with it too much. But what I will do is I'll put a little boost at 12K. And it's a little bit subtle, so you may not have heard it, but it just makes everything brighter, has more air, fills out the frequency spectrum a bit more. Okay, now at this point it's time to compress. I do have my preset. So something I noticed the last time that I streamed mastering, I forgot to mention my low relax. And one of the things I love about Kotelnikov compressor, whereas I have much more expensive compressor plugins, is that it has this internal sidechain. The Logic stock compressor has this too, internal sidechain that lets you basically exclude certain frequencies from triggering the compression. Because all compression is if a sound comes in and it's above a certain volume, it brings it down by a certain amount. So often your kick will be the loudest thing in a mix, and every time your kick hits, then your compressor makes the entire song a little bit quieter to compensate. But I don't want this whole song, especially a song like this that's very atmospheric and it's not like a dance song. I don't want the whole track bouncing every time the kick hits. So I'm actually going to sidechain that out and exclude it from being able to trigger my master compression. These numbers you could almost copy. The things that you'll want to change depending on songs is gonna be your attack and your release. I find having a fairly fast attack is good, but you don't want it to squash your kick and snare. So if you hear that your master compressor is affecting the sound of your kick and snare, it's too much. And then release, I actually go visually, and I know that's like illegal, but I just find it easier. You just want to see if it ever is not reducing the volume, because if it's always compressing, like it's always reducing by 3 decibels or something like that, then your song's just gonna have a lot less dynamics. It's a lot less difference between the quiet parts and the loud parts, and that's becoming more typical for pop music. But it's also like one of the reasons people think vinyls sound better is because vinyls can't be quite as compressed, so they tend to have more dynamic. And old music in general tends to have a lot more dynamics. Loud parts are louder, quiet parts are quieter. So our ears are tuned. We do like that, even though it's less standard for some reason. So I try to have it not always compressing, and just personal. I unless a song really needs it for some reason, I only ever want it reducing, gain reduction compressing by about 3 decibels, and then I use my makeup gain to add that right back in, so that it's not notably quieter, it's just less dynamic, so that when the kick hits or whatever else hits, it's not like a spike of loudness. And the significance of that is that when it goes into a limiter, we have a little bit of a volume fluctuation, because I'm going to turn off that limiter, and then I'm going to throw on the one I use on final tracks. Sonable Smart Limit. When it goes into your limiter, it looks for a peak volume, and if something passes that peak, it'll either clip it, which might sound like distorting, or it might try to like softly reduce it to make it quieter. But a limiter is like the compressor, where if something hits a certain volume, it stops it, but it's a hard wall. It doesn't let anything pass. It doesn't have any forgiveness. So what you can do is you set it to something like -1, which is standard for streaming. And then you can increase the gain of your song to make it overall louder towards that limit, but then you don't want your song hitting that limit much. Like, you don't want it all just slammed against that hard wall of -1 dB, or else it starts to get really distorted and it has literally no dynamics. It is just really unpleasant. But you can reduce things hitting your limiter by compressing more. So you can see these little spikes. Every one of those spikes is a kick drum, because it's the loudest thing in my mix. So if I see all those kicks coming down and spiking, then that also might be a mix issue. I might go just turn my kick down. -5, -13.5. Yeah, I was thinking that seems a little bit loud. Okay, so Sonable Smart Limit also has some AI features, I tend not to use them, except that you have to let it analyze once before you can change certain parameters, which is a bit of a bummer, but I still vastly prefer this to Ozone, which is kind of standard for like hip hop and EDM producers. All right, so it's showing me my like estimated loudness here in real time. So a little bit loud. I'm aiming for negative 13.5, which is slightly louder than the Spotify recommended limit, but that's because I want to err on the side of too loud as opposed to too quiet. If my song's too quiet and Spotify tries to make it louder, well, actually, I don't think they do even. I think that was with my early tracks. A lot of my really early music's just too quiet, and it's because Spotify just doesn't care. So you don't want your track to sound too quiet in a mix, or else it stands out and people are like, wow, that sucks. But by going a little bit over, then Spotify just applies a little bit of reduction, and it won't make an audible difference. It won't sound super terrible. But okay, so smart limit from its little AI analysis, it wants to add more saturation, but I'm adding so much saturation through other plugins already. I don't need more. Bass control is just a little bit of a multi-band compressor thing that does to make your bass sound a little fatter. And then same with this balance knob. It's this whole AI it's like sound goodizer, like it's like magic formula. I find I don't notice a difference unless I really crank it, and it actually sounds bad. It sounds really bland, though it is good for catching random resonant frequencies, which is especially nice when you're mixing. If you just have one pair of headphones, there might be a frequency that you can hear right now that I can't. So if I put on something like this, it'll hopefully will catch that. Also gonna change up the limiter style to be a little harder. I feel like the song needs to be louder overall. Okay, another thing I'm gonna do, just because I'm actually gonna throw Soothe in there. And you probably won't hear a difference. This again is just cautionary, and then for me it's a thing that I just do. I have this preset I made that it just specifically regions where there lots of buildup usually sucks. If there's a lot of 4K buildup, that tend to sound really harsh. And personally, I find around like 510 to 530, like somewhere in this range, there's a frequency that just sounds like crap to me, and I don't know what it is. So it's just my personal taste that I tend to make sure that there's not buildup in that frequency range. But this is sounding pretty good. I'm gonna throw a meter on there because I don't necessarily trust the one in the limiter. Yeah, and I think it's a little bit loud. But we're gonna stop this, let the reverb die. Reset our meter. And we're gonna listen to the track start to finish once. See how loud it is integrated. So with LUFS, it's I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's a measurement of perceived loudness. So it's not just decibels, it takes into account frequencies, and which frequencies are more or less audible. And it gives you, so this meter I love, it gives you your short term, it gives you which is fairly instant. It's like, how loud is it right now? And then it gives you integrated, which is over the course of however long it's been reading. So usually the whole track is what I'm looking for, because that's what Spotify will look at if it decides whether to turn your track up or down, is it looks at your integrated loudness of the track. So I want that to hit about negative 13.5. Loudness range is sort of like a guessing measurement of dynamics. And then, yeah, that's what all this is about, is just trying to tell you if it thinks your song's dynamic enough. It also shows me right here what the actual true peak is. As you can see, we set it to -1 and it's only hitting -1, which is good. That's what we want. I did think this song's a little bit quiet. Oh, but here's the loud part. Still a little bit quieter than I'd like it to be. I'm gonna adjust about 0.5. And in the moment, that's a bit loud, but I think over the course of the track, that will be good. I might even turn up a little bit too much. But yeah, it's not bad. That is essentially a mastered track. I'll do a little bit after stream because I'll run analysis like 5 or 6 times. I'm also going to listen to it on a few different types of speakers and headphones to see if there are different frequencies that stand out to me as really terrible. And sometimes you will notice things listening on like a phone, for example, that you won't hear on really nice pro audio speakers and stuff. So I like to always do checks on a few different sources, a few different types of headphones and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty much a finished song, I think. But I don't know. I actually haven't been streaming very long yet. I might even pop into that original that I opened by accident initially. There we go. So I've been listening to a lot of like lo-fi house recently, as opposed to just lo-fi hip hop, which is what most of my catalog is. So I've been trying to kind of experiment. I made this little loop with a kalimba. And I chopped it up into this. So it's not much of anything yet, but I feel like it could be. I feel like it has potential. It has potential. But I'm actually going to reuse that same trick I just showed you in the other track. We're going to grab Ableton Sampler. Oh, don't crash. There we go. I'm going to find some nice Foley loop, something. I have a few loops in my own pack. Let me see. Those are drum loops. This is literally me opening and closing a pocket knife. Let's try that out, and we'll throw an arpeggiator on there. Oops. Modulate the sample start, sample offset. Set it to 1/8 notes as well, into random. Oops, there we go, effect. I think I need a little bit more complicated sample for this to work well. I don't hate that though. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw one long MIDI note so that it plays and I don't have to hold down a key. I'm gonna add an audio track. We're gonna target that as a recording source. Fully loop. Now arm that for recording. We're just gonna record it for a bit. See if any of the random nonsense that comes out is usable as some cool percussion loop. Yeah, I think there's too much silence. I might have to do this again with a different loop. So we're not going to delete that yet. We'll keep it, but turn that up. Don't mind that little rhythm there. But I'm going to add the end of a different part. Something like that. What does this sound like? So that in there too, maybe. Dimitri, hey, thanks for stopping in the chat. Don't look at the connected counter. Thanks, dude. I'm honestly not too worried. This is I'm trying YouTube streaming. We're seeing how it goes. But this is not where most of my people are anyways, but I'm just here to have a good time, hopefully do something helpful, hopefully teach some stuff or just give people some cool vibes, hang out. But yeah, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the encouragement. Yeah, I don't care for this loop now that I have it in context. Or maybe I do. I don't mind it. It needs more though. It needs something else as well. And not from the start. I like it with just the snare there. But yeah, one of the nice things about the way I have my OBS set up right now with YouTube is I can't see the chat and see the viewer number at the same time. So, and I'd rather look at the chat than look at the viewer numbers. So I don't even have to think about it. But all right, let's reuse the same, channel here. Let's throw a different loop in there. See if we can get some more cool Foley sounds. Let's use one of these junk loops from an Eldre pack that I've used pretty often for this type of thing. I don't mind that. Let's add another record source. Fully loop arm. Record a little bit. Okay, I'll filter that down. Let's see in context. Well, oh no, let's listen to it back first, see what we got. I don't mind just that. That's a nice kind of like lower level, probably EQ it. I'm actually gonna add all the highs back in, which normally I cut out for my Foley or for my perks, but I'm gonna use this. Something like that. Then I'm a little bit ahead of myself in that I haven't even grouped all my drums yet, but I like to have everything in a group so it's easier to mute elements quicker. So I don't mind that at all. Okay, right about this loop, we're gonna bring in some bass. I wish I had a bass guitar available, but I do not. So we're going to, I'll probably go for a contact bass. Let me see. I have this little preset that I put together when I did the Good Vibrations Lo-Fi track in the summer. That sounds pretty cool. We'll see if, I don't really want to dig out my keyboard right now. We'll see if I can find a good groove from just piano roll. Oh, did I delete? No, here it is. I think we're just in C. Yeah, we're just in C. Okay. Nope. I want that hit on like an offbeat. Oh, that is not the right note. Oh, that was the fourth. That's why. Let's go to the fifth. Sound more happy. I didn't care for that though. Maybe I do want it to sound darker. I do. Let's keep it dark sounding. I keep that rhythm, so I'm just gonna copy the same MIDI shape. I just loop. I stay on the A there as well. Maybe I'm not in C. I thought that riff was in C, but it doesn't sound right. Let me look at my MIDI again. Yeah, should be in C. Maybe I like pitch shifted it slightly when I did my chopping. I don't mind that how it turned out anyway, so. Oops. I'm gonna add a little bit of saturation through the Ableton Saturator, Sinoid Fold. Just made it quite a bit louder. Change the bass so it focuses lower, and I like to have a little bit of width in there too. Now that we're working at this stage, I'm wondering if this doesn't need such a complex kick pattern. Is this just a 4 on the floor song? Yep. I'm already liking that better. Okay. Now, do I want to keep that and switch, or do we go 4 on the floor from the start? That kind of works. I might probably just need like a transition there of some kind. Might go for something a little bit heavier than this bass guitar. I have, oh, what's it called? I have this Moog synth I've been messing around with a lot recently. I have a little preset I made. It's just Cody bass, just kind of pure. Oops. That needs to be down an octave or two. I guess the other question is this the drop, or do I want to build up more? Because I might. Here's my kalimba loop. I might filter this down. Oops. Good grief. I want this to be pluckier. Let's find the envelope. There's a filter envelope. Is there? Oh, there's an amp envelope. Okay. It's always fun learning a new synth when there's like a sound that I'm not sure where it's coming from. Because with my sustain and release down, it should just be sounding like a pluck right now. But it has this wobble that I just don't know where that's coming from. I'm wondering if there's an LFO I'm not seeing. I don't mind that though. Now that I just made a sine wave. That's a lot chiller. I'm gonna change up these keys. I like that better. And I haven't even sipped. So Tenoshi guarantees me, Tenoshi's another VGM, lo-fi VGM artist, if you're not aware, that drinking this specific energy drink is how he gets so hype on stream. I don't know if it's gonna help me, but he also told me he avoids doing music production on stream because you don't want to be talking while you're doing stuff. So I might need to do a little talk break in a while just to keep things interesting, but I think I need another melodic element to come in. Let's grab Serum, the preset to start. A couple go-tos. This is kind of like Stranger Things. This is like a signature lo-fi Cody, especially in early days. A lot of my earliest stuff, I used this specific serum patch all the time. There we go. G. So, little trick if you didn't know. What makes a melody catchy is the balance between predictability and surprise. So being able to repeat something gives you that sense of satisfaction, because when you think, oh, I know where this melody is going, and it does go where you want, that gives you that little bit of like, success. I successfully guessed this. So subconsciously that tends to make you feel better. But then there's also the element of not wanting to become tired or boring. And when you start to think you know something, having now a new element come in adds that novelty aspect. That suddenly makes it exciting again. I don't think I need to bring that in early. I think we'll bring it in somewhere like that. So let's see. Okay. I'm liking this, but that pocket knife loop's starting to really grate on me. I think we're gonna make a new one. Gonna replace that. Reuse my same little technique, but I'm gonna use a sample that's a little more predictable that I already know how it works. Sampler arpeggiator. Okay. Junk 3 is my jam. 2. Sample offset. Set it to 8th notes. Here also 8th notes. Random. Oh, I forgot to turn up offset. There we go. Okay. Let's record that, see what we can get out of it. All right. I even kind of like the intro. This is a much better loop. I didn't even chop it up. It just came out nice. But actually, no. Let's give it a listen. Let's see if we can make it nicer. I think I like the beginning of this bar and the end of this first one. Let's see what this is. Yep. That's the loop. Okay. Let's hear it in context. I'll have to turn it down again. C, E, G, A is my chord progression. Okay, well that makes sense that over the A, the B bass. Just don't know about this B here. It's also way too loud suddenly. that is the perfect time for another layer of chords. I have a trial version right now of let me think, what's it called? It's a Juno 60. So I have one of my go-to synths is the DCO 106, which is an emulation of a Juno 106 synth. And I got another one, just a trial version that I like much better, but it's also really expensive. So we'll see. Oh, why can't I think what it's called? Waves, Slate, Sky, Rose. Here, let's listen to music while I look for plugins. There it is, Model 84. It's a soft tube plugin. Okay. It even just looks old. Like, it's very cool, but I was searching for the other day because I made a Stranger Things patch, but I wanted to know if they already had one, and I found this keys patch instead. Just a whole different vibe. I'm gonna adjust the envelope a bit. Oops. Like it the loop, the section. Oh, because I selected but didn't hit loop. There we go. Okay. And this is about the time for a dropout of some kind. Which might be a good time. Oh, I don't have my drum pad within reach. I'll just do it on the timeline. Be a good time for funkier drum pattern. Follow the bass line somewhat. double time that snare. That is offbeat slightly in a not fun way. Oops. Yep, I'm liking that. There's a little bit of a crunch in the kick sample that I don't love, which is embarrassing because it's my own kick that I made. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just... I think it's just a weird clipping here. Let's sidechain the... I think it's phase canceling. This isn't necessarily a solution, but it'll help me figure out if that's what the issue is quickly. I think it's just that bass patch, actually. Hold on. Yeah, why does it have that, like, tail? It's driving me nuts. So I shouldn't use synths I'm not familiar with on stream. What even is that? What did I just open? Oh, it's a keyboard. Okay, it's fine. I think I'm just gonna switch a synth out. So this one, I really enjoy. Hybrid 64, Hybrid 3. It technically doesn't run an Apple Silicon. I don't know why it does work for me, but it sometimes just doesn't. So we'll see. Really like this the bass patch. That is the wrong one. The heck? Maybe. Every once in a while, I'll accidentally try using a Logic Pro keyboard command and confuse myself. That sounds different. Why does it sound different? Just really can't win. Okay. New plan. Gonna use an operator base. This is a preset I got from a friend, Pal Kid, who's also producer. Oops. I didn't realize it was poly. Instead of fixing it, let's just find a loop point. Oh, that was not the loop point. Oh yeah, because that was 5 bars. Oops. I think that'll work. That would be a good everything in moment. I think I'll just loop it again. Then we'll start towards the end, because that is a 2.5 minute track now, which is acceptable. Go down a note. I'd like people to hear that while I move it. That would be good resolution. That's a little bit too abrupt. Might be too abrupt still, but let's work on some Transitions. Oops. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna hear what this transition sounds like. That needs to be. That crash is a little bit too harsh. Man, I don't know if these are just loud for stream, but every time I sample a sample, it's super loud. Interesting. I don't mind that, but I'm gonna wash it in reverb. Gonna freeze and flatten it. Combine it with that tail, and then reverse it. I don't want that now. Realized. Kind of dips down at the end. I want it to be more abrupt of an end. Also, I have this plugin that I rarely ever use, but is very useful. Sure, I'll just use the default preset even. Automate that. Maybe not. I don't want to spend too much time on specifically this, though, so let's look at... It's not bad. It needs to be much louder. Might reuse here. Let's reuse my new little riser. See how that sounds. Still a little bit too soft. I don't know what I'm missing there. I feel like this would be a good place for a new perk loop of some kind, or even, I don't know, do I not cut that one out? Ooh, do I want it to end unresolved? That little bit of tension, or do I want to just leave it on that last note? I think I like it that way. As more of like kind of a somber end. All right. Well, this is going to lead a lot of mixing, and there's a lot of elements to add to it yet, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I only intended to stream for an hour today, and I realized it's been an hour and a half. I don't know. It seems like people were here and people were just vibing. So I could, no, I'm probably gonna wrap it up pretty quick still. Let me switch to my face screen. Sorry if you came here specifically to look at Ableton. You have to look at my face now, but I appreciate how many people have been here. You've all been quiet, but that's all right because it's a quiet stream. It's chill. No, I really appreciate it. I'm still trying to grow this YouTube thing, trying to decide if I want to be on YouTube. Most of my following is on Spotify and Instagram, but good job. Oh, thank you. But yeah, I like YouTube. I like the community. People seem nice. Way back in like COVID, I streamed on Twitch and it was a mess. So I'm really appreciating slowly but surely. Man, dude, everyone in chat's so nice. Thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, if people like this production type content, I'll keep doing it. I've been feeling the pressure. The advice has been to not do it and to do more like rowdy gaming content. But my thought is I'm really busy. I'm a music producer. This is my job. So if I can make content and make music at the same time, that saves me a lot of time, and I want to be able to make stuff that's helpful too. So if you're just a music enjoyer, I say just, it's not a diminutive thing. Like if you're just here to listen, I love that. I want you here. Welcome. If you're a music producer, I hope that I can show you some tricks and teach you some things. But yeah, if you have been having a good time. You listen while doing schoolwork. That's awesome. That's the plan. I was hoping that would is how these streams would end up. That's actually the way that I started Lo-Fi Cody. Is I started streaming way back years ago, and people told me that they just put me on in the background because they like just listening to my music and my voice, and they're like, you're like lo-fi as a person. And I was like, I feel like that's slightly offensive maybe, but I've just leaned into it and now it's my whole jam. But yeah, if you want more of my music, there is a link in the description, but I go by Lo-Fi Cody on every streaming platform. You can also find me on Instagram, or if you want to interact and you want to talk about music, I've recently set up a Discord. I tried using Patreon as a community thing, and people really didn't like that, even when it was free. It's just people, I think Patreon just sort of has this air of asking for money, and people didn't like that, and that's fair. So I have a Discord now. I think I have a chat command. Let me see. It didn't work. Okay. It used to work on Twitch, so I could use my chat commands, but in my description I have a Discord link if you want to hang out and find out what's going on and talk music. I'd love to see more people in the Discord. Until next time, I'm not streaming on a schedule because yeah, I don't know yet. If people like the streams, I'd love to hear feedback, comments, whatever else, but I would like to do more streams, but I'm not on a schedule right now, so just follow, subscribe, whatever helps you stay in the loop. And yeah, I'd love to keep doing this. I appreciate everyone who's been here. Have a good rest of your evening or day, wherever you are.